buildings have that transparency, 75%, so storefront windows along the street frontages. So along Ash and Juniper, where the residential component is, they are not meeting that. It's about 50%. And so just some feedback on that. I wanted to make sure that I provided some context for what these height requests are. So again, HVC allows up to 55 feet. We know the water tower is around 120 feet. The university building is at 68 feet, a little over 68 feet. CoLab is at 64. And then the Vaughn parking garage, that clock tower, probably the most similar to the maximum height we're requesting here, is 78 feet. So hopefully that provides some visual context to the heights proposed. So first we'll talk about the multifamily component, highlighted here in blue. It's at the northwest corner of the site. They are proposing 288 multifamily units. Per the development agreement, 250 are required. So they've got a few extra, but not a lot of wiggle room there. They're proposing a 5-story building. And then in terms of the height, there are a variety of heights proposed. So to the top of the residential roof is 54 feet. So that does meet the 55-foot height requirement. But again, they're looking for 5 stories versus the 4 allowed in HVC. And then when we start to talk about the height increases, we're focusing on the area highlighted in red. So to the finished floor of the roof deck is 63 feet, and then to the very top of the amenity building and elevator tower is 78 feet. And I should point out that the request for these deviations on this building really came from some reconfiguration that the applicant did on the multifamily piece. With their original submittal, the multifamily extended all the way to Gilbert Road, and we had asked them to reconsider the layout of the site so that the entry into the Heritage District was not multifamily. And so in doing that, they shifted the hotel to that corner. And in order to meet the unit count and just make things kind of make sense for the site, they relocated their amenities to the roof. So there are rooftop amenities on top. So that's what's driving those requests for the additional height. The applicant has provided some renderings that I think are really useful in kind of depicting what that looks like and the small footprint of these height increases. So in the foreground, you can see the amenity building, and then on the far right, there's a little gray building, I suppose, and that's the highest point. They've also provided us a line of sight diagram that just shows the farther away you are from the building, the more likely you are to see that the amenity building. So here is depicted at the intersection of Juniper and Gilbert Road. You might barely be able to see the top of that amenity building. So the visual impact based on where it's located in the site is pretty minimal. And then they've provided this rendering that shows from the corner of Juniper and Ash looking towards the site. Again, you can't see that increased height here. They've also provided their elevations for our review, so I wanted to make sure we took a moment to talk about these and see if there was any feedback from the commission. With the multifamily building, they do have 3 distinct architectural styles so that it doesn't feel like one very large massing. So the themes that they were going for, there's like a Spanish Revival or mission style building, brewery, or it's also been called railroad and ag industrial, and then an Americana style architecture here. They're proposing a variety of colors and materials. There's metal roof portions, there's a variety of bricks, stucco, and then glazing for the windows. I will point out one of the things that staff was pretty pleased to see was the variety of window patterns on the building. And then I also wanted to point out that in my staff report, I had expressed some concern about some of the balconies not providing shade and shelter for those that might use the patio. And in looking at the plans a little bit further and touching base with the applicant, a number of those are Juliet balconies, so there actually isn't a patio space. And so I think that does help to alleviate some of the staff concern on those balconies that you read about in the staff report. And again, looking at another elevation, you can see how they've utilized the 3 different architectural styles. Moving on to the hotel building number 2. This building, located at the northeast corner of the project site, is about 80,000 square feet. They are required to provide 75,000 square feet or 150 rooms per the development agreement. So they are meeting that requirement. Again, with this building, they're proposing a 5-story building. And again, there's multiple heights proposed because of the way they've done the massing of the building. So to the top of the 4th floor is the north and south portions of the building is the top. So that's 49 feet. And then to the top of the amenity roof is 60 feet. And then to the top of the mechanical screening is 71 feet. So I'll show you what that looks like here. This is from the corner of Juniper and Ash looking at the building. So right at that hard corner, you don't have the tallest portion of the building. It kind of steps back a little bit. And then even from Gilbert Road, it steps back to that maximum height. So we think they've done a nice job here as well. Again, looking at the elevations from both the front, the top image is from Gilbert Road looking towards the hotel. And then the bottom image is looking from Juniper south. So you can see that the largest massings aren't necessarily closest to the street frontage. And then this is the rear of the building. I wanted to share this because the Paseo at one point throughout the site does go between the hotel and the multifamily. And so as somebody's traveling down the Paseo, this is the view that they will have. There is landscape, of course, proposed within the Paseo. So materials include brick, concrete, steel, and stucco on this building. With regard to mixed-use building 3, this is towards the center of the site, just north of the Commons. This is a 31,000 square foot building. Again, top floor offices, bottom floor retail. It's proposed at 2 stories, 37 feet to the top of the parapet. This building is interesting in that the Paseo travels through it. So as we talk about the Paseo, keep that in mind that this is one of the buildings that it goes through. The north or the top picture here is the Gilbert Road view, and then the south is what you would see interior to the site. Retail building number 4. This one is right next to the parking garage, the south parking garage. It's about 4,000 square feet, single-story building. So this is one of the ones where the applicant is requesting a decrease in the minimum height to allow for that 1-story building. We think it makes sense in this proposed location, but certainly would love to hear Commission's feedback. Here they anticipate some small tenant spaces. This is another building that provides some diversity in the architecture. They've got some glass blocks, tiles, the metal canopies. So I think they've done a good job with this portion as well. Retail building number 5, that is at the center of the site, just south of the Commons. It's about 7,700 square feet, another single-story building, 25 feet to the top of the mechanical screen. I will point out that building number 5 does include public restrooms for those that are visiting the site, using the Paseo, using the Commons. That was included in the development agreement, so building 5 is where that's located. So here we can see those elevations. Again, kind of goes along with that historic theme that we expect along Gilbert Road. With retail building number 6, this is about 6,700 square feet, another single-story building, 30 feet to the top of the parapet here. This one has some similar materials, but it doesn't necessarily match. It coordinates. So looking for some feedback on these buildings as well. Materials include brick veneer, precast concrete, steel, and stucco. Office building number 7, located at the very south end of the site. This building includes about 145,000 square feet of office space. The development agreement does require 100,000 square feet of office space, so this meets that requirement certainly. And then on the ground floor, they've got a proposed 9,200 square feet of retail. This building also is designed in a way that there are a variety of massings to help break up the building so it doesn't feel like one very large building. It is, so along Gilbert Road, there's a portion of the building that's only 2 stories tall. Then there's a rooftop patio. And so that portion of the building is 30 feet. There's another area where a portion of the building goes up to 4 stories, and then there's another rooftop amenity area. And then to the very top, the highest point of this building at the 5th story is 72 feet, and then to the top of the mechanical screening is 79 feet. As part of this project, they're providing 14-foot ceiling heights, and so that's why we see the tall height here. So some images looking at the building. On the top image, if you look to the left, that's the portion of the building that's closest to Gilbert Road. So 2 stories, and then there's a rooftop amenity area on top of that, that massing there. And then looking at it from the sides, or the west and east elevations, you can see how there's a step back. And this is looking towards the building from the Western Powerline Trail and Ash Street. Looking at the parking garage, or building number 8, this parking garage is the south parking garage. It has just under 700 spaces on 5 levels. They are proposing a total height of 57 feet to the top of the elevator tower, 45 feet to the top of the 5th level. So just a slight increase in the maximum height of the zoning district. They've also provided a tiered design so that closest to Ash Street is only 4 levels. And then as you step back further into the site, it increases to that 5th level. The development agreement does require a parking structure that has a minimum of 5 floors. So this satisfies that requirement in the development agreement. This is the project looking from Ash Street. The Powerline Trail is on the east. So you can see the portion of the building that's kind of shaded back is the part that is set back from Ash, providing that tiered effect. And the other thing that I'll point out with this image is the tallest portions of the building are internal to the site. They're not located along the Powerline Trail or along Ash. They're internal to the site. And then the final building is the kiosk building. As I mentioned, that's at the center of the Commons open space. It's just a small 400 square foot building, 22 feet in height. Looks a little bit like the water tower. The other item that we wanted to talk to you about tonight and get some feedback on is the rooftop signage. The development agreement talks about Heritage District signature signage. And so at this time, the applicant is proposing a rooftop sign to meet that requirement. So we'd just like some general feedback on your thoughts on that rooftop signage, and whether or not it shows that significant sense of arrival. Also looking for feedback tonight on the ground floor residential. A use permit is required for ground floor residential. As we've evaluated this project, we've contemplated the viability of residential, or of commercial rather, along Juniper and Ash Street, and whether or not those would be successful spaces. And I think in those locations, residential probably makes sense. Interior to the site, we've continued to have conversations about what that ground floor residential looked like interior to the site. And one of the things that has been a topic of that conversation is really activating the pedestrian environment throughout this project. And so we would really prefer to see in those important view corridors into the site those active spaces, storefront windows, things that kind of bring life to the project rather than a residential unit. And so this view here that you see is looking from Gilbert Road between the hotel and Building 3 down Laurel Avenue. And we've asked the applicant to look at options to include storefronts there. Maybe that's where they provide their fitness center, those types of things. Further into the site, they do have their lobby on that ground floor, but we would love to hear some feedback on that ground floor transparency into these important view corridors. And then we also wanted to share with you the Paseo layout. We know that this is the north-south multi-use path through the district that connects all the way from the south end up to Juniper Road. It is currently planned to enter the site at the proposed alignment from the Heritage Marketplace development to the south. And once it enters the site, it turns to the right or to the east and travels along the south end of Building 7. It then goes through Building 7, between Buildings 5 and 6, through the Commons open space, through Buildings 3, and in between Buildings 1 and 2. I will kind of walk you through what that looks like from the south end up to the north, but also wanted to point out that this pathway includes art and directional signage to help those that are making their way along the Paseo to know that they're in the right location. They've also provided some imagery or some plans that show where trash and benches and those types of items are throughout the site. It's important, and it's part of the development agreement that they provide landscaping and benches along the Paseo. And so the only area that I had any concern about was between the multifamily and the hotel. That portion of the site really only has trash receptacles and doesn't really offer any other amenities. So that's something we've asked the applicant to address. So as we look or as we walk down the Paseo, so this is looking towards Gilbert Road, the Western Power Line Trail being on the right. It passes in front or behind Building 7, I suppose. And then you'll travel along this way and head into Building 7. They've got about a 13-foot clearance height as it passes through Building 7. I think it's important to note, too, that on either side of the Paseo, they have storefront windows and spaces that will keep eyes on that space for safety. From there, it travels between Buildings 5 and 6 and through the Commons open spaces you can see here, and then passes again through Building 3. Again, here they've created a unique feature with the accent lighting, storefront windows, and access on either side to, again, keep eyes on that space, keep it safe, keep it active. And then as it passes through the multifamily and the hotel, this is that view corridor. The applicant has had 2 neighborhood meetings. The first was in 2019. Staff did feel like the application has changed quite a bit since that meeting, so we asked them to hold another. They held that on Monday, and I understand from the applicant there was about 11 people that attended. Discussions focused on parking overflowing to the neighborhood. There was some discussion on scooter usage, safety after hours, and traffic to the site. So I know that was a long presentation. Happy to go back to any of the slides if you have feedback for me and you want to look at those as we go through. But primarily, again, we're looking for feedback on the building heights proposed, any feedback you've got on the elevations or site plan in general, rooftop signage. If you've got any strong feelings about the Paseo or the ground floor residential, happy to hear that feedback.
Great. So before we look for comments or questions from the commissioners, I do believe we have one citizen that want to come forward with some comments.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Dorley's Machado Liddell who would like to speak.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I have a few comments. One of the comments regarding, I did not attend the community meeting because it was on the 18th and today's the 20th. So I thought, well, they didn't have time to input the information into the discussion. So I think in the future, they need to have a space so that staff can put the comments into the report rather than, guessing what the comments are. So anyway, I have a few concerns. So my one concern is the parking structures, because there are things, it's parking, traffic, and one other one. I'll get to that. But required parking. So there are 2 parking garages, and in the report it says that the majority of the parking that's required is going to be, I guess, in the PAD, but I don't know if it's all, because according to the development agreement, the developers shall shall be responsible to provide on-site parking for all uses located within the project through the combination of surface parking and vertical parking structures. So all parking shall be within that. And it didn't talk about an administrative use permit to decrease parking. So I think parking is something that needs to be addressed because yes, it will be overflow. And we have problems in that as it is. Regarding the, we talked about the height, and I think staff mentioned about that was part of the development agreement. I can't find that in the development agreement, and I have it here, but I did find, and it did talk about the conditional use permit as it relates to the ground floor residential in the multifamily. But I didn't see it in the development agreement. Maybe staff can find that, I don't know. In regards to naming of streets, I noticed that they named the street Park Avenue. So they have Park Avenue and Laurel. Well, I live on Park Avenue, and it's West Park Avenue, and there's East Park Avenue in the Heritage District. So I'm not sure if part of the PAD, if that's part of the requirement that they name their streets. So I have some issues about the naming of the street. So if you have West Park Avenue and East Park Avenue, that already exists in the residential area. Whereas Uber, we have Lyft, we have delivery trucks, they will end up lost in the residential streets. They already do it, but they'll be end up lost. Individuals will not know where they're at, whether it's West, East, or Park Avenue when calling 911. The fire department will not know whether to respond to which Park Avenue is it. The police will also be compromised due to the confusion. Response, hopefully never on a tactical response, that will also be compromised. Lastly, where will they deliver my mail? Which Park Avenue will it be? I think that it's very confusing, and I see it where it says Park Avenue and I see Park Drive. Well, how about Heritage Drive? Heritage Avenue? I don't know, but I do think that having multiple street names in the same area, it's a problem to me. The Paseo, I noticed the Paseo, and I'm glad it goes all the way through. I just didn't see anything about bikes. And I know that's part of the Paseo is bikes and pedestrians. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out within the Paseo. I'm just questioning how it relates to, how it relates. In addition to that, traffic. Traffic is horrendous. And increasing the amount of the multifamily, because we are increasing it from the original development agreement, the number of units, and the traffic study that was originally proposed, that was done during COVID and the shutdown. It doesn't reflect what is happening in the Heritage District. Traffic will really increase, and it will be an issue. I just would like and I see that it's done, that the development agreement has been addressed. I think that the restrooms, I'm hoping that it's well signed near the commons area, which was required. And those are the few things that I have. Well, I do have one comment, and I don't normally comment on architecture, but I look at the multifamily and I look at it as a little bit, to me, it just lacks something. Whether it's character, the depth, I don't know. It seems like that portion along, is it Neely, may need some boosting. But I thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. It is a study session, so we're not voting tonight, but this is a chance, like citizens, for our fellow commissioners to give comments and ask questions of staff. I don't believe the applicant will be speaking, but I think they've had plenty of dialogue with Gilbert staff, so I'm sure we can get all questions or comments addressed. So with that, I'll ask for the commissioners to give some input. No,
Thank you, Chair Shaka. I do have a few questions in regards to parking and the multifamily building and where they're going to park, and then where the hotel guests and employees will be parking. Will they have to walk the entire Paseo?
Thank you, Chairman and Commission. That's a great question. So the residential, if I can you get me there? Other way. This will work. Yeah, can you go back? Yep. Go up. That one right there, that colored one. Just down. 53. That might be the better way. Perfect. So if you look at this site plan, you can see that there is a residential garage that's part of that multifamily. So the multifamily units wrap that garage. That garage satisfies the parking requirement for all of the multifamily. And then there are about 50 excess parking spaces that will accommodate the hotel guests. The hotel, I believe off the top of my head, requires 110 parking spaces. And so there is some on-street parking and I believe a valet option for the hotel.
Will Juniper be widened?
There are some comments that traffic has made related to Juniper. It has more to do with the bike lane. The bike lane doesn't currently extend all the way to Gilbert Road. They can accommodate the addition of the bike lane and potentially 2 left turn lanes from Juniper onto Gilbert Road to help with the stacking that's required. But there is not a plan to put in additional through traffic lanes on Juniper.
Casey, can I ask a quick question just while we're on this? I know you told us over the slides, but how many units is the hotel room? Was it 180?
The hotel is 100 rooms.
100 rooms.
In the development agreement, they were required to provide 75,000 square feet or 150
Okay.
rooms. So they're at 80,000 square feet, but they are
100
100
rooms. And then how many units in the multifamily?
The multifamily is 288 units.
288. And then the parking garage has how many spots?
Oh, that's a question.
657. Okay, there you go. No, that's parking garage number 8.
Yeah, I don't know that number off the top of my head. But the way the multifamily parking works out is it depends on the unit type. So studio and 1 bedroom have a different parking ratio than 2 bedroom and
Okay,
more.
gotcha.
And then there's a guest parking ratio that's worked into that as well.
Okay, perfect.
So kind of bouncing off those questions. So Juniper Lane is, it's got 1 lane each direction. It looks like that's your fire route, that's your waste route. There's no bike lane. And that's also where you've got 388 people pulling into the parking garage for just that one structure. Okay.
Well, they could. So there's another access to that parking garage from Laurel Lane. So those that enter from Gilbert Road could turn into Laurel Lane and then enter the parking garage interior to the site.
So do we know the proposed occupant loads for all of the structures?
I don't, but I could certainly look into that, but no.
is there, so we approve, I'm just trying to go through if we say yes to approving the height adjustment, and then we discover we've given them an extra floor and an extra so many feet, and we're still deficient a few hundred parking spaces, then what happens?
I don't know that that's a question that I have an answer to. I mean, if we approve the project, it would be looking at all of the pieces together. So what our code requirement is, along with what the required parking is per our land development code, and how they're able to accommodate that on site. I did mention that they submitted an administrative use permit to talk about parking. And so we internally as staff are still looking at solutions for that, because they are not meeting the minimum requirements of our code. But at the same time, our code does provide provisions for reducing the code requirement for parking. And again, ongoing internal discussions on that.
So then our potential, we're not voting, but like down the road, if we do agree to this, it's not also saying we've approved it with the 600 and so many parking spots in building 8 and the so many parking spots in building 1. They are still required to, whenever they submit to planning and zoning, demonstrate they've got adequate parking.
Yeah, so because we're reviewing multiple applications at once, it's kind of a staggered hearing schedule. So the first thing that will come to you as a hearing item is the PAD that talks about the increased heights. But if we don't included, let me back up. Included in that is an approved development plan. So it doesn't include all of the very specific detail. It's kind of a general development plan that we're approving these increased heights, these decreased heights, these other things based on this proposed layout that you've shown us. And so at that point, because we're approving a development plan along with the zoning, we want to have a pretty good idea that everything kind of pencils out. So that's why we're reviewing concurrently the use permits and the design review. That being said, because of the different approval processes required for the various applications, you'll see the PAD come to you first for a hearing. The use permits will follow, and then the design review will follow, because they all require different levels of approval. But before we bring anything to the commission on the zoning, we have to have a pretty good comfort level that the site plan moving forward is something that we can approve based on meeting our minimum requirements, because we're locking in that development plan. Does that help?
Yeah, that was very helpful and helped clarify some things. So thank you.
Other comments or questions from commissioners?
I got a few, and if any of you guys have any thoughts, you can pipe in before I go off to any others. So the rooftop signage, to my understanding, we had approved sometime last year that there would only be 3 of them, one in the north, one in the center, and one in the south anchor. And somebody applied for one. Did that ever get accepted in the center sign?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Bigelow, we actually never received an application for the center rooftop sign.
Okay, perfect. Either way, just on the sign, because I know that was one of your main points. When it does come up for our approval, it would be very helpful with the diagrams and the height of the buildings. If you could show us the height of the sign, the length of the sign, and how high off the building is the sign, just because, to give us a better idea of like how big this is, or, what we're looking at.
Okay.
As far as that goes, though, with the height, on that same note, going with the height restrictions and trying to go higher, it is very helpful and very clear the way that it was laid out, and showing that the line of sight and what you can see, because stair stepping does work really well. And I think definitely the way it's laid out, the way they did it, does work really well with this. And I think going with those lower buildings in the front, and then having the higher buildings, and then the big buildings having the different textures and the different styles going along with it, really does help break up the space and not make it look just like a Costco. So I think that all that stuff looks really good. The Paseo. Okay, so it's 24 feet wide, and I know it was talked about bicycles and, like scooters and skateboards. Is this just going to be people walking? Is it going to be everything, or what's kind of the vibe we're going to be going with on it?
So we have some options. I did talk with our transportation planning manager this morning about options for the scooters and things, and if geofencing, if there was a concern and we didn't want those to be utilized throughout the site, if that was something that could be done. And he did say that we could. We would have to sign the property saying that you couldn't use scooters within it, and then they kind of die as they get to the boundary, at least for like Lime and Bird scooters that get rented. In terms of the Paseo, it is a multi-use path. The development agreement does talk to the bicycle path kind of moving along Ash Street, or the potential for that as it moves through the site. I don't know, Amanda, if you want to jump in and.
My scooter can go anywhere. It doesn't shut off.
Chairman Shaka, Commissioner Bigelow, just to note, so Ashley's correct that the bicycle lane has moved out to Ash. And as we are continuing through the pre-design of the Paseo in the core and southern portion, it really became evident that we're talking about two different kinds of bicyclists. There are people who are really moving through an area, and that's where moving those along Ash Street with a dedicated bike lane really makes sense. And then certainly at this point, there's nothing that would prohibit people from utilizing a bicycle on the multi-use path. But for those who are really trying to traverse and get north-south in an efficient manner, the idea is that we would have that dedicated bike lane all along Ash and the new Ash alignment. And so there will be a public meeting in November or December that will talk further about the components of the Paseo, but that is the direction that we're headed in the pre-design portion.
Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect. I think there are going to be people who are going to be flying by, running, just trying to actually get exercise, and then a lot of people just cruising around. So I think having those two different paths and designated ones will definitely be very helpful. Let me look at this. The only other thing I would say is, obviously parking's way more complicated than I could even comprehend as far as like what's going to be needed and how many spaces are going to need to be there. Maybe when they come for our vote, if they could just tell us, hey, this is exactly how many spaces we have, this is what is normally needed for these situations, and then this is what we're asking for, kind of like you did in the beginning with the transparency going from 75% to 50% along Juniper. Just let us know kind of where it's at and which direction they're going. I think that would be very helpful for me at least. So.
Perfect. Any other comments or questions? There is a slide. I think we have another question from Commissioner Kendall, but there's a slide to Commissioner Bigelow's about this. Can you go back to the Heritage District sign, the rooftop sign? I think there is.
Does it have the dimensions?
I think it has some dimensions on there, but it brought up a question for me as far as hotel signage or branding for other hotel, what that possibly would look like. And I think it's probably too early now, but in a follow-up meeting, if they could do some, I guess, possible scenarios of what signage would look like with a brand of a hotel, if it's not the actual brand. And it's one of those, but just, I guess, what would that look like if there was additional signage? I think the signage in downtown Gilbert is talked about around the state. I mean, it's amazing. So I just wanted to maybe have some more visuals of what signage could look like. There's one more. It was the line of sight that had the dimensions. Yeah, the stair. It's fine.
That it might be they put the batteries in wrong.
It was towards the beginning.
And Chairman and Commission, I will add that one of the applications that has not yet been submitted, but will be at some point here in the future, will be a comprehensive sign plan or a Heritage District sign plan that will incorporate all of the signage and some guidelines for those. And so that information certainly is to come.
Perfect. I think the applicant did a great job looking at every single side. Each elevation seems to have, some very, a lot of thought put into it. On the back of the hotel, the Paseo, there's like two big panels, and I don't want to spend the applicant's money, but that right there, those two big panels, if there's some inexpensive, metal art they could do on those two big panels, or maybe it's not necessary working with staff if landscaping is going to ultimately cover that. But everything is just every side of every building looks great. And I thought that there might be an opportunity here that those two large panels that are blank, there could be some kind of art, but not necessary, even a metal, something or other. But there's another slide that shows the actual heritage sign with the line, the sight line, but there's another one. But anyway, can staff talk a little bit more about the reduction from 75% to 50%, and what you had said, maybe mentioning what the applicant was considering putting, perhaps like a fitness center, or what was some other possibilities to make it more an activated first level?
So as it relates to the transparency, the 75% down to the 50%, that is related to Gilbert and Juniper. So our code doesn't differentiate between residential and non-residential uses for having to meet that transparency requirement. The intent really is to create these active street frontages where you can just see the activity going on in the building, but it doesn't account for ground floor residential because it's not an allowed use if not for a use permit. And so where that really comes into play again is on Ash Street. So the third elevation down and Juniper, the two middle elevations, I guess, is where that condition applies. And so they're looking to reduce it. You can see that ground floor, they've only got about 50% transparency there, window storefronts, because they're residential units. So that's where that request comes from. As it relates to interior to the site, where I was talking about having the fitness center relocated, let me see if I can get to maybe a better, was this the one?
There's another one with the sign on it with like dimensions, but that's fine.
Okay. Well, let me go back to this site plan. So if you look along Gilbert Road, and then Laurel Lane is that access drive, the northernmost access drive into the site. They currently have residential units. If you were traveling down Laurel Avenue towards the west, the car would be facing right at those residential units. And so we just felt like it's a really important view corridor into the site from Gilbert Road, and having residential units right there. We'd prefer to see something more active. We'd prefer to see something that creates a activated pedestrian environment, if you will. And so we had suggested that could be a good location for their fitness center. I didn't include the floor plans in my presentation, unfortunately, but the fitness center is currently on the ground floor, kind of to the west of that corridor you can see, or the amenity area that's in the center. It's just to the right of that. So it seemed like there might be an opportunity to relocate that, just to create an environment that feels a little bit more active, even though it's still satisfying an amenity for the community or for the multifamily piece, rather than being open to the public at large. So that was where that comment came from.
I had a couple follow-up questions. When Commissioner Meehan was asking about the occupancy, if coming forward at a future meeting, if we could talk about the possible occupancy or what some of these other buildings could bring. And with that, relating back to parking, is it restricted parking? Is the hotel and the residence, it's restricted only for hotel and residence, or can a guest from the hotel or the residence multifamily, could they also park in the other garage? So I guess coming forward, talking about totally, it seems to be adequate parking, but across the valley, when we see multifamily, it always seems to be, insufficient parking, especially if you go to a complex at night, you'll see cars parked on the street. So I'm just wondering, with the applicant, if they can talk a little bit about maybe shared use of both garages. Maybe one is restricted to the multifamily and hotel, while the other one is obviously public. And I don't know if people want to share in that, but giving that possible occupancy load, I guess, for the entire site. It's 10 acres and 10 acres of a lot of people coming. And what I love about the site is the critical mass. I think downtown sometimes, they're not viable if they don't have critical mass. And this is a good job of critical mass. And I think my record, I love the way they've stepped back the height. They've addressed that issue, stepping it back. I think there's a trade-off with some of the shorter buildings and not having every building tall and at that 55 feet. So if they have a couple that need it because of the elevator or whatnot, I think they've done a good job with that step back there. Those are some of the comments I had, but mainly I guess just the parking could potentially be an issue. One last comment. We didn't really talk about trash or some of the ugly things. We talked about pedestrian trash and those little containers, but what about commercial trash, but grease traps and deliveries. And can you talk a little bit about that and how those are concealed, or there be a shared compactor and some of those details?
Yeah, Chairman and Commission, certainly. So they have proposed on-site 3 compactors included in the submittal that perhaps didn't make it into your packet. It's quite large. Is a trash management plan. So there is a compactor located at the very north end of the site within the residential garage, and then there are 2 located in the south garage, one at the south end, one at the north end. We have provided comments back to the applicant with some questions and concerns about the location and approachability of those compactors. And so more to come on the final location of those, but included in that waste management plan within each of the buildings, there are storage areas for that refuse, and then the path that those businesses would take to get to the compactor. One thing that I didn't bring up as part of my presentation is the waste management plan does show, and I'm not sure if it was in error or not, but it shows the hotel refuse going down to the south garage along the Paseo. And we want to make sure that we avoid having that occur on the Paseo. So we're still kind of working through some of those fine details.
I have one more comment on this. This is relevant, but a little irrelevant. Just with the traffic crossing, because I know we have a safe crossing guard right there where the canal is, and then we obviously have one on Juniper. But Dutch Brothers causes a lot of traffic, and I'm sure once this is in, we don't really have people jaywalking, but there could be potentially. They might want to look into doing some, I don't know if it'll chop it off, if it'll cause more traffic, or I don't know, something, but just think about that. Because I live down off Columber, and a lot of people try passing there, and it has the blinking lights, but a lot of times people don't even stop, or they don't even see them. And with this amount of density of people and traffic, like, I wonder how many people are going to be trying to cross the street or what they're going to be doing. So just a thought.
Excellent feedback. Thank you.
I've got some follow-up questions in regards to the retail space and hours of operation. Have those been discussed?
They have not. Yeah, there is not a limitation within this zoning district on hours. I don't know if the applicant has any plans for that, but we could certainly ask that question.
What about the type of retail? Will there be like individual boutiques or more like name brand?
It hasn't been specified at our level. The applicant may have some more information that they can provide on that. But I to your point of boutique, that building 4 is intended to be those small user spaces that really doesn't exist in the downtown, that they just need a really small space to kind of get started. Within the rest of the buildings, I don't have an answer for you on that at this time.
What about security?
I'm not sure about that either. Good question for the applicant that I can follow up on.
Along Laurel Lane, Hemlock Lane, Park Avenue, are those streets by definition, meaning that cars will be driving on them?
Yes. Yep. They will be. I mean, they're private streets throughout the development.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I think it is important to consider the street naming Park Avenue. I don't know if staff wants to, that's really a staff question about if that's a confusion for fire or police or Uber Eats, if that street is named correctly, but maybe staff can work with the applicant. Maybe it's just more of, it's for the purpose of the presentations. I didn't know, maybe staff could look into that.
Certainly.
Or even Laurel. I don't know who Laurel is, if it's named after someone special or significant, but just saying this is going to be such a big part of our heritage district. If it's like a very defining and very, off Park or off Laurel, it's like, it could be anywhere. I don't know. And if that is staff or whose decision that is, but I feel like there could be very simple short names to describe where you're at specifically in this arena. And it would just be, just be nice to have. So.
A closing comment for me is, I don't know if it's the power lines or just me personally, but I feel like this parcel doesn't feel like the downtown, and now it does. I feel like the applicant's done a good job with the buildings and the tiered, as the other commissioners have pointed out, the tiered approach of different levels of the building. So it really feels like an extension, a proper extension of downtown. So I'm really happy with the look and feel, because right now it's a blank canvas, but didn't really feel like a part of the soul and the heart and soul of the the actual district, right? So now I think they've done a good job incorporating that, which has been the vision for a long time. So I like what I see with the stacking and working with staff and flipping the location of the hotel. So I like what I see, and so I'm really excited to see this get developed.
Is there an opportunity for us to review the development agreement?
Yeah, we can provide a copy.
And the traffic study. I agree that I like what I'm seeing. I do have concerns, especially with Juniper and Ash being just one lane, and Gilbert Road, only being 2 lanes. This is a lot of people we're introducing into the area. Really quickly, Commissioner Bigelow, I think I found the height of the sign, maybe on. Okay, you did find it? Okay.
It was a little vague. I don't know if it said the length or anything, but just,
I don't see the length. I think it's approximately 5 feet tall. This is really hard for me to read so small, but okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? So a little bit of homework. I mean, before we vote, and I won't be here to vote on that, but I think the commissioners brought some good questions about total. I think it's a parking question as far as one of the bigger takeaways as far as the actual filling up all the retail spaces and the hotel and everything. So working with staff, hopefully come back with some answers for the commissioners. So at this time, we are going to thank you for your presentation. Yeah, we're going to recess the study session. It's 6:58 p.m. and we're going to reconvene the regular meeting. So with that, I guess we need to do another roll call.
Commissioner Kendall,
Present.
Commissioner Meehan,
Present.
Commissioner Bigelow,
present.
Commissioner Shaka,
Here.
Commissioner Clausen.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. So now we move on to agenda item number 3, and Councilmember Tilke. Thank you.
To see, but here we go. Thanks. I didn't wear my heels to this evening. Sorry, we had a late meeting last night, so I still think it's morning. I'm here today because I want to thank Commissioner Shaka for his service on the Redevelopment Commission, as well as his contribution to Arizona's downtown. And so I'm gonna, hopefully you can hear me. Peter, I know you're very humble, but I'm going to take this moment to just outline some of the impact that you've had in our district, because we really want to thank you and honor you for this. Peter served on the Redevelopment Commission from November 2017 through October 2021. During his 4 years of service, Peter has provided significant perspective and guidance to Heritage District projects, including the 2018 Heritage District Redevelopment Plan adoption, Culinary Dropout, Hale Theater expansion, Gilbert Shops, including Oso, the Dog Spa, and Creamery, Aspire Heritage District, HD South renovations and expansion, Hearn Way Park and Garage, Oso Park, the Porch, the CoLab building, and the Heritage District design guidelines. It's hard to find a place in the Heritage District that Peter hasn't helped grow. And it's sometimes you just have to stop and reflect on what a positive impact you've had, but as you look at your fellow commissioners, what you will have into the future. And so thank you so much for that. In addition to his role as commissioner, Peter served as commission chair and vice chair. His passion for urban environments and the impact he makes on Arizona's downtowns is apparent through his role as past chair of the Downtown Chandler Community Partnership Board. That's a long one. And his involvement in the International Downtown Association. We appreciate Peter's dedication in ensuring that through adherence to the redevelopment plan and design guidelines, the Gilbert's Heritage District continues to be the symbolic heart of the community. And thank you very much, Peter. And I want to present you with a gift. So we're going to do that just real quick.
Just a quick comment before you keep going, Councilmember. It's not possible really without an amazing staff, and so I am involved in downtown Chandler, and not to compare, but it's amazing to work with great staff. Amanda Elliott, Dan Henderson, everyone, all staff members are so professional, so thorough, answer phone calls, very available, and it just makes life a lot easier. Also, as a developer myself, I sit on that side, and so it's also refreshing to hear developers, brag about, how it's good to work with staff here, right? Some cities don't have that reputation. So it's always nice to hear from that community, having great people to work with, and it's a great town to work with. So you guys should be proud as council member and staff. So thank you guys. I really enjoyed serving. So thank you.
So do I just go on to the next one? Okay, I just want to make sure. So our next agenda item is appointment of the redevelopment chair. So Peter, as we wish you the best on your new endeavors, what an exciting time for you, really, as I think you're an empty nester now and you're looking at what's going to be happening in your life. And I'm just so excited for you, and I wish you all the best. But we want to move into the Redevelopment Commission chair appointment. And tonight we're glad to announce that TJ Clausen will be appointed as our new chair. And TJ, welcome, and thank you for your willingness to do so. And I think at this point you take over the meeting and we'll finish our reports.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember Tilke. I look forward to serving this committee in the Heritage District, and Peter, I have big shoes to fill, but I appreciate you setting the tone, and I think all of us can say with confidence that we wish you nothing but the best. So it is now time for the communications portion of the agenda. I do not have any updates as chair. Councilmember Tilke, do you have any updates tonight?
I do. Thank you so much. We didn't do a lot of action for downtown and the council agendas since the last time we met, but I did want to announce a couple of events. We'll have a Veterans Day celebration on Wednesday, November 10th. That's down at the Gilbert Regional Park from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And then Gilbert Days is back on, so we're very excited about that. The parade will be Saturday, November 20th in the district as we've had in the past. And so you can check out the website for that. I saw something today, and I apologize, I didn't write down all the details, but I think there's going to be a musical festival for Gilbert Days down at the regional park as well. So there'll be a lot of family activities. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any updates?
Not an update, but I just also wanted to thank you. My first meeting, you called me prior and welcomed me, and I appreciated that. So thank you, Peter, for that.
I would like to thank Chairman Shaka as well. Over the past year, you've taught me a tremendous amount, and I really appreciate your perspective. And when you point something out, it was very, I didn't even think of that. So I appreciate your leadership and everything you've done over the last year while I've been a part of this commission. Thank you.
I guess I have to say thank you as well then, publicly in front of everybody. No, Peter's awesome. He knows I love him. Out of all the commissioners, I feel like I've gotten the closest with him, and I'm sad to see him go, but I'm excited to meet the other ones as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Amanda or any other staff members, do you have an update?
Well, I also want to say thank you, Peter. You've been just such a gem to work with, and I have so appreciated just our discussions about the Heritage District and its growth. And I appreciate your perspective and the thoughtful nature you take to ensuring that the character of the area is retained, and just how we're able to make this area really dynamic for our business owners and our residents and our visitors, and just all of it. It has been just a joy. And I know we'll keep in touch. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I do have a few updates to share with you all. Scheduled to take place October 18th to 28th during daytime hours, Monday through Friday. Contractor crews will be working on the power line trail west side of Gilbert Road, but they are going to be working off the roadway. So I may have announced in a previous meeting that this was originally scheduled to be conducted during night hours, but because we were able to find a workaround where we didn't have to work in the road, it will now be during the day and on the trail. There's also a new coffee concept, Space Coffee. It's coming to the Heritage District, and it will be located next to Allstate on Gilbert Road, just south of Page. They'll have various coffee options and then some local retail shopping in their store. Just a reminder that there are 2 concerts left in the downtown concert series presented by Openshaw Real Estate Group. That's on October 21st, which is tomorrow, and the 28th. And the concerts begin at 6:30 p.m. It's also the season for Gilbert Art Walk, which happens every other Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. under the water tower. And the next one will take place on November 6th. Also happening at Art Intersection is the 11th annual International Juried Exhibition of Images created using traditional darkroom, historical, and alternative photographic processes and methods. It's titled Light Sensitive. And so Art Intersection is located at Heritage Court, which is at Gilbert and Culver. Hale Theater, located across from Water Tower Plaza, is currently running 2 shows, Mary Poppins and Harvey, and tickets are available at their box office or online. As a reminder, HD South, the home of the Gilbert Historical Museum, is undergoing a capital campaign to raise funds to preserve the more than 100-year-old building, remodel, and expand. And individuals interested can help by ordering a commemorative brick or making a donation. And then some items to mark on your calendars. Gilbert Days Parade is Saturday, November 20th, and the step off is at 8:30. So that takes place on Gilbert Road between Elliott and Juniper. And then you'll also want to save the date for the water tower lighting and holiday concert, which is on November 29th. That starts at 6 p.m. And so it's from 6 to 8:30. And just as a reminder from last month, you should have received your ballots for the 2021 all-male special election. So as a reminder, in this election, voters are deciding whether or not to approve a $515 million general obligation bond. So that's related to streets, transportation, and infrastructure. And as we showed last month, there is a map online. So individuals who are curious about what projects are located on there can go to the town's website and view all of the many projects encompassed in that $515 million bond. And with that, those are my updates.
Thank you, Amanda. With that, I adjourn the meeting, and it is 7:10 p.m.
I'm not sure.